Hey guys, welcome back to another video on RevAtlas. I'm Sandeep, and in today's video you're going to be watching the M30s smartphone from Samsung. So this is actually the updated version of the M30 that was available earlier, and in this video we're going to be talking about the smartphone in detail just to figure out whether it's actually worth buying or not. And the entire video, apart from this A-roll where you see me in front of the camera, has been shot on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So do mention in the comment section below about what you think about the video quality as well. Now before we get started, please do give us a thumbs up at the end of the video if you happen to enjoy it, and also do hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. Now let's talk about the Samsung M30s. Now in terms of design, it's very much similar to the M30 that it replaces. There's not much different, and even the dimensions remain practically identical both in terms of the height and the width. But what's different here is the thickness, which is around half a millimeter thicker owing to the larger 6000 mAh battery that is packing under the hood. Now the body is still plastic, but it's not to say that the build quality is bad. It's of course solidly built, and it definitely has a weight to it, which is again added thanks to the battery itself, which is now larger as well. But it definitely feels solid, and plastic means that you won't get any issues with breakage, etc. But it does result in more scratches. Luckily though, this new paint job here, which is in a gradient, it goes from a bluish to sort of a greenish hue, and it's actually more of a horizontal thing from the side to side as opposed to top to bottom that you see on most other devices. So this gradient kind of masks most of those scratches and even your fingerprints. Of course you also get it in a pearl white color and even an opal black, which goes from black to a sort of greenish color on the side, but I kind of find this to be the most appealing. But if you want something a bit stealthier, perhaps the black would also appeal to you, and that's my second favorite as well. So overall, in terms of the handling too, it remains pretty much the same, and despite having a huge battery under the hood, it doesn't really feel unwieldy or too heavy. The weight distribution is done well. I would appreciate if they actually started giving glass at this price point in terms of adding a premium feel to it, but then again, functionally and durability wise, it does not really make a huge difference, and in fact this is better than glass. Now in terms of display, it remains the same as its predecessor. Is still a Super AMOLED 1080p plus panel in 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So the performance is great when it comes to the colors, in terms of the contrast and even the overall look and feel of it. I quite like the way that it is, and it's great to watch content on, especially since it's also supporting L1 wideband. However, one of the issues that I found with this was outdoors in direct sunlight, where the display glass itself, which by the way does not have Corning Gorilla Glass or any sort of protection, and I suggest you put a screen protector on for the same reason, it's kind of very reflective, and that hampers sunlight legibility quite a bit. It's not unusable, but I would definitely say that they could have done it better with perhaps adding a better sort of glass to it, which doesn't hamper the sunlight legibility itself. But overall, it's still a pretty good screen, and the bezels are also quite minimal. You have a notch here, it's a dot notch, but it's not too intrusive, and even the chin is fairly minimal as well. Of course, this being a Super AMOLED panel, you also get an always on display, which kind of is the reason why they haven't bundled a notification LED with this, but then again, some people would definitely prefer that over having an always on display. But one thing is good is that considering the 6000 mAh battery, having the always on display on also doesn't really affect the battery life all that much, since it is so massive to begin with. So if you're worrying about always on display draining battery, and that's the reason for not using it, which is the reason for me on some phones, then in that case you don't have to worry about the same as well. Whatever changes that we saw so far have been quite minimalistic, but in fact the most number of changes have happened under the hood, and that starts with the processor itself, which is now a 10 nanometer chipset. It's an Exynos 9611 chipset, which is better than the 14nm chipset when it comes to efficiency and even performance, and you get 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage by default, and it's UFS 2.1 storage, by the way. And you also get a higher end variant which comes with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. Whichever one you go for, you definitely get the dedicated micro SD card slot, and it supports cards up to 1 TB, which is again very good. And overall, overall in terms of performance, it has been performing solidly so far. There's no issues with it in terms of lag and those kind of things, which was an issue I believe with the previous generation. I didn't exactly review that, but I reviewed the M20, which was quite slow, and many people told me the M30 was practically the same in terms of the performance, so I found that to be sluggish. But this time around I feel that the performance is much better, and even One UI as a whole has gotten much more refined and smoother in terms of the overall experience. In terms of audio quality, the output from the speaker, which is a bottom firing mono speaker, is not all that impressive. The quality is great, but in terms of sheer loudness, I wish that they would have bundled something more powerful. The audio jack is also present at the bottom, which is again good in terms of the overall quality and output, and is much better to listen through that than through the speaker in my personal opinion. Now coming to the other biggest change internally, it is the 6000 mAh battery. So it takes around 2 hours for a full charge, from around 10 to 15% to 100% with the 15 watt charger, which is great considering it has 6000 mAh of battery, and that's pretty good. Even the M20 of last generation kind of took around the same time to charge a 5000 mAh battery. So despite adding 1000 mAh, it's still charging at around the same time, and that's quite impressive, I feel. Now in terms of the actual battery life itself, this thing will last every single user, regardless of whether you're a heavy user or a light user. It'll last you at least 1 day of full use, and most people 2 days of full use. In terms of screen on time, you're looking upwards of 10 hours of screen on time on a single charge. I mean, even the ROG Phone 2 came close to 10 hours, on a single charge with high-end specifications. So you can imagine that a smartphone with a smaller screen, with less powerful internals, but still Super AMOLED, you can get, much better battery life out of this thing as well. Now, in terms of the security features, you get a fingerprint scanner at the back. It's housed here, and weirdly enough, it actually asked me to kind of swipe my finger on it while registering it, as opposed to actually tapping it. I'm not sure why that difference is there on this thing, but regardless of that, it's actually very accurate, and it actually took me just 1 or 2 taps in order to 1 or 2 swipes rather to register it. It was extremely fast, and one of the fastest in terms of the registering speed. Now when it comes to unlocking too, it is pretty fast, and I would say it's fast in terms of recognizing it, but there is a latency in terms of it actually unlocking it when you actually have to wake the device up from sleep. But if you try and actually wake it up like this and then unlock it, is much faster. So Samsung could possibly fix that with a software update, but I'm not sure if they're doing it, but it's something that needs to be fixed at least. Now in terms of face unlock also, it has the front facing camera which does unlock your face, and it too has a similar latency. If you're waking it up from sleep directly and trying to unlock, you see that there is a bit of a gap, but if you're trying to unlock it once the screen is awake, then you'll notice that it's much faster as well. The last and final change on this smartphone is actually in terms of the camera. So while you still get a triple camera setup, you can see that the entire setup has been extended a bit in terms of the camera island that houses those sensors. It's a bit larger and a bit wider. So this time around you get a 48 megapixel sensor instead of the 13 megapixel sensor that was there on the Samsung M30, and it's also having 0.8 micron pixel size as well as half-inch sensor size. Now overall, even though the depth sensor remains the same 5 megapixel f2.2 sensor, the ultra wide angle camera has also been upgraded from a 5 megapixel f2.2 sensor to an 8 megapixel f2.2 sensor. In terms of quality too, I do see that they have made steps in order to improve the processing as well as the overall image quality compared to the previous generation phones. The M20, to be honest, wasn't very good, and I in fact said that if you're trying to buy it for the camera, don't buy it at all because it's not worth it. But the M30, I was told, was a bit better, but now the M30s I can see is a huge leap forward in terms of the camera quality itself, and that applies to even the ultra wide angle camera. What still needs some work though is the front facing camera. Is the 16 megapixel f2 camera, and the output is kind of weird. Even if you turn off beauty and all those filters and stuff like that, I still do see some softening happening to the skin, and I feel the quality can be improved overall, but still I would wait for the camera review that we are doing very soon in order to give a final judgment as well. So that was the review of the Samsung M30s. Overall as a smartphone, I think this is pretty much worth your money at 13,999. Of course, it does kind of command a premium over similar offerings from other brands, but then again you get a Super AMOLED display, you're getting the Samsung brand name, and those are two things which perhaps most people looking at Samsung phones in the first place are kind of wanting to get from a smartphone in this particular price segment. Now, I personally might be looking at options such as the Redmi Note 8 Pro as well, kind of paying a bit extra and maybe going for that. But then again, it depends on your need, and we'll be doing a comparison with the Note 8 Pro as well very soon. So do stay tuned for that. As always, do let us know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Thanks for watching this video. See you again in the next one.